Hey everyone, welcome back to a CI Chit Chat. I am Mitch Hora. I'm going to be out harvesting beans here today. Actually get to do some farming, which I'm excited for. We've been hammering down harvesting, but want to share an array of different insights with you all here before heading out to the farm for most of the rest of the day here and cutting some soybeans. To start off, we'll start like we always do. What the heck we're talking about here with CI. CI is carbon intensity. Continuum has developed a whole suite of tools to help farmers navigate this space, including CI scoring, which we'll start there. CI scoring is now totally free on our topsoil tool. We had been charging a fee and we had the discount codes and stuff. We got rid of all that. CI scores are totally free on topsoil. And you can start and stop there if you want. It's totally free. You can go to TopSoil.ag and go and get your score. After that, what we really do at Continuum is we help farmers to get their scores verified, which happens field by field, and we're creating CI verified CI certificates. So it's one certificate for every bushel of your operation. This still looks like the right path forward. I'm going to talk about some insights from USDA and from the Renewable Fuels Association and a variety of things that are going on. There's lots happening around this right now, but it all continues to boil down to farmers need to get their data organized and make sure that they've got their ducks in a row, able to capitalize on these incoming opportunities. So we'll do a different chit chat here at some point where I'll show the full process start to finish, but anybody can go to topsoil.ag, complete the farm profile, and then after you do the farm profile, let me go back. Oh, I gotta select farmer. So when you create an account, it'll prompt you to create a farm profile, which is simply selecting the crops that you grow. That populates this list of crops and fill out this farm profile. It can be really basic. Don't worry about getting too overly detailed here in the farm profile. You can always dial it in later. Keep it quick and simple. Plug in, if you're using cover crops or what you're doing about fertilizer and manure and your yields, that calculates your carbon intensity score. So that'd be just a preliminary score based on your default farming practices for each crop. And this score is now totally for free. We did have a paywall on it before, but now we're saying, hey, we need to get everybody their score. We need to really ramp back up our billion bushel challenge. We've got 5.4 billion bushels of corn that goes to ethanol every year. We need to get it scored. You can run your soybean score here as well. This is basically the default. The Greek default is what I've got plugged into here, but you can run your CI score for soybeans or for corn. And what's really cool about this is as you're thinking about practices for this fall to influence your CI score next year, you can utilize the CI calculator again totally for free and see what your score would be based on a change of practice. And this one, I ran an example looking at cover crop and reducing tillage. But you can change your fertilizer, you can change your yield, mess with all that, and you can see what your score would be. Keep in mind, we do not know what the value is to the farmer. What we do know is the math that's laid out in the law, and that's what we show here, where the ethanol plant earns 2 cents per point reduced per gallon of production. We run a conversion factor here of 2.7 gallons per bushel, which is super conservative. And we show the math on that. So you can kind of see what type of 45Z impact you can create. We have no idea what the farmer share of any of this is going to be. Again, a variety of pilot projects that are happening, paying the farmer anywhere from 2 cents a bushel. Some of the pilots are talking maybe 8 or 10, or I've heard 15 cents a bushel, but they're all small scale and pilot projects. When 45Z actually rolls out, when we get the final rules, which we still do not have, then we'll figure out exactly what the value is really going to be. But for now, you can go to topsoil.ag or any of the farmers in your network. You can go to topsoil.ag, get your free CI score. We'll do a more thorough, complete walkthrough later, but I'm really excited for that to finally be free. We've been talking about it for a long time. It's like, we gotta help these farmers out and get people their scores and make sure that everyone's ready to rock and roll. So TopSoil.ag, you can do that. So the couple things on the latest on 45Z and what's going on. There's been a lot here. So let me start with the rules, right? So we still do not have rules. There is still ongoing indication that this administration will get the rules out there while they are still this administration. So basically between now and January to get some rules put out there. Not going to hold our breath. Hopefully they do pull through. Hopefully they do get some rules out in that time frame. That'd be awesome. The current status of all that remains that they will publish some preliminary rules. There'll be at least a 60-day public comment period to give feedback on the rules. Then the Department of Treasury ingests all those comments and they determine what are they going to end up doing. And then they publish the final rules later at some undefined time. So very, very likely going to be at least, next summer at a minimum before they actually publish the final rules. But even if we had some preliminary rules, we had some good indication of how they're thinking about this and how they're moving forward, that still is going to give us much better, sense of security on moving forward and getting this data put together because it's not free. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and we are spending a pile over here at Continuum to make sure that we're building the systems to help farmers and help our biofuel friends be ready to rock and roll here. So we're going full speed ahead. We're not slowing down, but rules sooner rather than later would be really helpful. That brings up we don't know what Department of Treasury is doing. They're being very quiet about this. I guess what we know is going on is that the Department of Treasury has been reaching out one-on-one to the ethanol plants or to the biofuel manufacturers, and they're conversing one-on-one to gather more info and to work towards getting some rules. So what they're doing, I've talked about this before, but there were the latest 45Z rules that came out from the Department of Treasury was the last day of May. So the last day of May, they published some rules saying you have to fill out an application if you're a biofuel producer wishing to pursue 45Z. The preliminary deadline for that application was July 15th, and there was a tremendous amount of folks who got their application in by July 15th. The CPA firms were helping, and it was all hands on deck effort, but they got it done. So May 31st, the rules came out. July 15th, the initial deadline for the application. Then after that, one by one, ethanol plants or biofuel manufacturers started getting feedback from the IRS. And they were asking all kinds of different questions about, how much do you produce and who do you buy from? Who do you sell to? What's your CI score today? How are you going to calculate your 45Z credit? So asking all kinds of different items of information, and the ethanol plants have been responding back to that. I think we need to get more aggressive at really telling them, here's how we can calculate the 45Z credit. Here's how we can calculate our CI score utilizing today's versions of the GREET model. They're not perfect by any means, but it is the best we've got, and it's good enough to get this whole thing off the ground. We're trying to help those biofuel manufacturers by saying, hey, we've already scored. Now we're over 325 million bushels now that we've scored. And hey, here's some data that we can bring to the table on an aggregated basis. The farmers own their actual scores. We never share a farmer's actual score. The one I displayed here on Topsoil is just a dummy account. It's not a real account at all. It's just a dummy account that I created. We never share a farmer's actual score. But what we do have some access to is aggregated scores at a county level or at a state level. So we do have some data about that. So if your ethanol plant is trying to calculate, what are their CI scores going to be in their area, we already have hundreds of millions of bushels scored, and we can help them to walk through, what are we seeing in their specific area, in their supply shed. So I think we have to continue to get more aggressive to really show the IRS, here's how we can calculate these scores. Here's kind of what we're thinking it's going to be so far. Here's the efforts that we are taking to capitalize on this opportunity. So that's between the Treasury and the ethanol and the biofuel producer. So that's moving forward. That's happening. at the same time, USDA is really working hard to get their rules put together. So a lot of you may remember back in also in July, the Renewable Fuels Association had a request for information. So they published that in June. The final closing was late in July, and they asked for public comment in regards to calculating feedstock CI scores and what crops should be included and stuff like that. And the so the uh, ethanol plants looking at, or the USDA looking at, okay, how do they calculate all this stuff? So today at 10 o'clock Central, the USDA has their first public hearing about the rules. So it's my understanding that for the USDA to create a rule, part of their process is they published a big long list of questions that they were asking the public to comment on. It was like 24, 25 questions, if I recall. They had, I think, about 250 submissions or thereabouts, including us and including a lot of folks that follow along to our content. So they said, give us some feedback on these questions. That public comment period ended in July. They've now been ingesting and reading all those comments and trying to get their thoughts put together. Now, today is the first webinar where they are having a public hearing about the comments. There's going to be opportunity for the public to share some thoughts and comments, and we'll definitely be trying to pursue that on Continuum side and just sharing very brief remarks. They're asking for 3 minutes at the most for each person to talk. So it's very brief. They originally were planning on having these webinars for 1 hour. And I was doing the math of how many comments you can get in 3 minutes each in an hour. Ain't very many. So they extended the time frame to 2 hours, which still, they're going to be able to get through just a small amount of comment, but going to be very interesting material to listen to while we are harvesting soybeans here this morning. So I'm excited. We'll see what everyone has to say. I'm sure it'll be kind of all over the place. But anyway, they have an enrollment thing here today. Diana, if we could, I think folks can still register to listen into that. And obviously we will talk about it here on the Chit Chat next week and give you my synopsis and my feedback on it. But I might be able to find that the links if you all would like to register for it and listen in. I think it'll be hopefully insightful. Let me see here real fast.
I put the link in the chat.
Did you find it?
To register? Or yeah, I'm putting it in right now.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Diana. So that is today. If I do get a chance to comment, what I'll be talking about is use the actual GREET model, the feedstock calculator, just like what we use in topsoil. Utilize the science, utilize the GREET model. It's already there. It's already available. It's not perfect, but it's by far the best we got. So let's do it. Rather than do a bundled approach like what they did with 40B. If they go with a bundle where you have to do, for example, cover crop, no-till, and stabilizers like in 40B, this whole thing's just going to fall apart. We don't necessarily like this bundle approach and forcing farmers to have to check certain boxes. The GREET model, although not fully all-encompassing, it's much more robust. A lot of different ways you can move the needle when it comes to your CI score, and it is the Department of Energy gold standard for calculating carbon intensity. Why would we not use it? So we'll be talking about that. Likely today in the public comment, won't talk about how these scores and certificates could be tracked, but it's our opinion that you could score a farmer CI score on a field by field basis, and you could track where that grain is aggregated and ultimately sold to by utilizing weighted averages and scale ticket tracking. And we have pilot projects going on that right now. So we know that we can track this grain from the field or from a farmer's entity track this grain through the supply chain. It's not that terrible hard to do. Take some APIs and take some new steps for sure in the process of delivering grain and scale tickets and stuff. It's going to take a little bit more work, but um, it's not it's not impossible by any means. So we could do that, could track these certificates. Option number two is to do a book and claim, and that's what the Renewable Fuels Association is pushing for. And book and claim, in our opinion, would definitely make this easier to get rolled out. Book and claim means that, for example, on the farm, I can grow low carbon, low CI corn. I can sell my corn to the local hog producer, and I can sell my verified CI certificates in the open market to any biofuel producer. So you don't have to deliver the grain and the scores together. In a book and claim, they can be separate, kind of like a carbon credit, but completely different here. So that would definitely simplify things from the beginning here. It would definitely bring a lot more folks to the table, like a lot of folks here that grow and feed their own grain, or grain going to export or different things like that. So book and claim would definitely bring a lot more folks to the table, bring a lot more supply of certificates to the table. It really kind of level the playing field for anybody to participate, not just those who can deliver their grain to a biofuel producer. So but anyway, so I just met with some of the USDA folks yesterday. I met with Bill Hohenstein, Tim Gannon, and Catherine Zook. It was amazing to get some time from them and be able to converse back and forth and have some discussions about this. We got into the nitty gritty and the weeds of the GREET model, but ultimately pulled things back saying, hey, the GREET model, yeah, it's not perfect for right now, but we have 3 months to get the rules out. We can't redo the entire GREET model here in 3 months. Like, utilize the model as it is. We're already way behind in getting these rules out. Utilize the existing stuff that we already have today, the GREET model, and get those rules published. Then we can identify the issues within the GREET model. We can identify the gaps. We can add new crops. We can add new geographies and get that done as soon as possible and update the GREET model. But there's just not enough time between now and January 1. And we need to get some clarity on these rules now. So trying to make sure that we don't sacrifice, good enough for the pursuit of perfect, because we're never going to get to where it's perfect and every single person agrees. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I think getting this program off the ground is more important than making everybody happy and including us. Like, I'm sure there's going to be things in this first version that we don't agree with, that we're not happy with, but gosh darn, like, we need to get the rules. We need to get this thing off the ground, and then we'll provide our feedback and we'll help as much as we can to improve the system and continue to do better going forward. A piece along those lines, just last week, there was bipartisan bills introduced in both the House and Senate to extend 45Z. So already we're seeing the interest of bipartisan legislation coming to the table saying 45Z is super important and we need to get it extended. This is amazing indication. Now, we can't we can't know for certain if we're in favor of extending 45Z until we know what the rules are for 45Z. So that's our public stance on it at this point. If the rules are good and farmer friendly and actually enable our biofuel producers to decarbonize and collaborate with their farmers, then heck yeah, let's get it extended. Let's rock and roll. Like, that would be amazing and really what we need to give clarity that this is not just going to be a 3-year program, but in the bill, it wants to extend it to a 10-year program. So that would give us a lot of time to really build some systems here, build some infrastructure, allow for these producers to invest in things like, carbon capture and utilizing the carbon that they are capturing or storing it. So some of these bigger infrastructure items can really actually create ROI when you're talking about a longer term program. The other piece of that bill was a requirement to utilize domestic feedstocks for 45Z. So I forget what the bill was called, Farmers First Fuel bill or Farmers First Low Carbon Fuel, something like that. But it said extend it for 10 years and then um, utilize domestic feedstock. So, because a lot of this feedstock is coming in, used cooking oil coming from China or ethanol coming from Brazil, being utilized for sustainable aviation fuel, stuff like that, and saying, hey, this is US taxpayer dollars and US tax credits. We need to have the products actually be US product. So, um, probably not a bad idea, but there is some balance to all this as well, and letting trade work, and we got to be thinking about the long picture of all this stuff. But um, it really good to see bipartisan support of 45Z once again, saying this is important. We need to continue to move forward here. So anyway, public comment today. Yeah, did we get that in there? Yes, good job, Diana. So if anyone wants to get on that webinar here today, that should be the link there. Um, Let me comment here as well. Um, okay, other thing that I wanted to share. Last week, I attended the Renewable Fuels Association summer board meeting. It was up in Milwaukee. It was awesome time. Great to see a ton of folks that been really trying to build a relationship with here over the last couple of years. Renewable Fuels Association has a tremendous amount of things going on to improve the markets around biofuels and really stand up for biofuel producers and for farmers. So they were really talking a lot about these feedstocks and stuff, but biggest thing is, in 45Z, and obviously not going to share any of the private information that was talked about, and disclose anything that's sensitive or nothing, but the Renewable Fuels Association in their public comment and what they were the discussions I was having with them last week, they're really pushing on book and claim. That's how RINs work today for the renewable fuel standard. So they're very used to that book and claim concept. And they're pushing for book and claim when it comes to 45Z, which, like I said, I think that would probably be the easiest way to get this going. It would allow for it to scale really quickly, and infrastructure like our CI marketplace that we're building would be able to facilitate it. We'd be able to rock and roll right off the gate. We're ready. So makes things very interesting if we do end up going that book and claim route. I had some awesome conversations with them about what we are doing in regards to scoring and our third party verification with eco engineers, and that we are pushing our first tranche of farmers to the verifiers here this month, which is super exciting. So the data is going in this month. If you're a farmer that's involved in CI certification, you got to be talking with your Continuum Ag representative here today. It's the deadline to get all this data in. So help us out and get your data into Topsoil so we can get you verified. Um, but yeah, they're watching what we're doing, and we've got a lot more conversations to have with Renewable Fuel Association, and again, collaborating together between the farmers and the biofuel producers. And I thought that during the board meeting there would be some of Continuum's kind of direct competitors in the room, and there actually wasn't, which was kind of surprising. But great to be there, trying to represent the farmers, trying to represent the feedstock, and it's a huge part of the quote unquote problem today. 29.1 points, but sharing with them, hey, we're seeing an average right now. The average is 11.2. It always bounces between that 11.1, 11.2. Right now we're sitting at a 11.2 average, so just shy of an 18 CI point reduction already there on the farms and these crops that we're harvesting right now. So we got to tell that story. And part of it starts with USDA in the webinar that's here later today. And within our billion bushel challenge, and all of us here to continue to get our data ready. There's still a lot of unknowns, that's for sure, but that's what we're doing. CI scores for free, get everyone ready to go, at least have a general idea of what's going on here. And whenever we do get more indications of rules, we'll be ready. last kind of thing too, and something that again, if I get a chance to comment today, I think there is a bit of a holdup going on in making some of these rules because the for a little discrepancy. I believe USDA is trying to define climate smart ag or define what is a climate smart commodity. And that's why they're hung up on this bundling, saying if you're going to qualify as climate smart, you have to do a bundle of a couple different practices, which I could see, being part of a definition of being climate smart. Just doing one soil health building practice probably doesn't necessarily, trigger you qualifying as a, quote unquote climate smart farmer. You probably have to do a couple different things. But that has nothing to do with calculating the feedstock carbon intensity of biofuels. And that is the definition that the Department of Treasury needs. The Department of Treasury needs to understand how to calculate the feedstock carbon intensity. And the tool to do that is the GREET model. We've had it since 1994. Like that's the tool to calculate carbon intensity of fuels, and the feedstock calculator is how to calculate the carbon intensity of the feedstock. That is separate than defining what is a climate smart commodity. Those should be two completely separate things. I feel like there's some discrepancy there, and maybe part of the holdup um, as the USDA wants to define climate smart, and Department of Treasury needs guidance on defining how to calculate feedstock carbon intensity. So we'll continue to try to, educate and be part of the conversations. It's a big, big deal. And we're getting very close to go time on these programs. A lot going on, a lot to share there. As we wrap, hopefully a lot of you hop on that webinar later if you do get the chance to talk. Obviously, we'd encourage you to at least talk about utilizing the actual GREET model, and that you know your CI score and you can do it, and it's free and it's not that hard. Um, and um, then speak your mind too if you're interested in wanting to participate. That's really what it boils down to on my side. Like I don't know of a better financial opportunity looking forward. I don't see a lot of hope of ag financials getting better. And I think we need an opportunity like this. So the other piece is we're having a webinar with Faith from Faith Larson from Mickelson and Co. She brokers tax credits. And so she'll be joining me on the full hour-long webinar. It is on Thursday at noon. There's a bunch of emails and stuff out there, and a lot of you are registered already, but Thursday at noon, talking about the actual process of brokering and selling tax credits. Really excited. I was with Faith up in Milwaukee last week. She is awesome. So excited to chat with her. There's a lot of different tax credits being brokered and sold and stuff right now. So a lot for us to talk about. One last thing I almost forgot. Our VP of Sales, Blaine, saw yesterday on social media that there was a farm that's going up for rent in Hardin County. So Hardin County, Iowa. And it's 151 acres, 80 CSR, good stuff. The starting bid was $315 an acre to rent this farm, and it sounded like the in the comments he was saying it actually might have ended up being rented for north of $400 an acre, which I think is I don't know how it works with $4 corn. But what's amazing about this post is the landowner is giving preference to a farmer who's pursuing 45Z. So if you want to rent this ground, you can put in a bid and submit your application, but preference is given to farmers pursuing 45Z. And this landowner is saying, if you want to rent my ground, I want to get a share of that 45Z payment. Somewhat of a flex lease, where you're paying a flat amount for the actual land lease, and then you're sharing in the potential for a 45Z premium together. I think I don't know all the details of the actual deal, but the most important point being landowners are paying attention. I think there's going to be a lot more of these type of bids being put out there and the call for collaboration between landowners and the farmers and the operators to go after 45Z together. Um, Very interesting to see that being posted as saying, hey, you want to rent my ground? We want to do 45Z and go after it together. So interesting stuff. People are paying attention. So, and kudos to everyone on here for being ahead of the curve. With that, we are out of time. I don't know who this user was who messaged me. You don't have your name on here, but if you were trying to message me and get help on topsoil, send me an email, Mitchell@Continuum.ag, or reach out to any of our reps or hit us up online or on any social media. We're checking everything. We'll make sure that you get somebody to help you out. So. Um, Bert, I think the registration to the webinar was, oh no, Diana, that's one for our webinar. All right, let me find the USDA one. All right, here we go. Here are the actual registrations for the USDA webinars. All right, there we go, everyone. We'll give a couple minutes here, but yeah, so there's 3 different webinars. You can register for any of them and just listen in. It sounds like in all of them, there's going to be opportunity for folks to be able to raise their hand and share their public comment if they would like to. Don't bombard things and be courteous to everyone, and don't go in there saying my score is worth $1.50 a bushel. I want $1.30. Like that's a bad idea. Saying, hey, here's my score. If you want to share your score, that's great. In my example, I'd say my score is a negative 4.1. If we go with a climate smart bundle, I won't be able to tell my story adequately. I won't be able to participate in to the full extent helping to decarbonize biofuels. But based on my farming practices and my efforts already, I'm in a negative 4.1. I would love to contribute that more than 30-point reduction into the biofuel space, but it takes good enabling policy for me to be able to do that. Hopefully everyone is able to get those links there. Maybe we'll get it put out in another email or something here too. Diana, maybe grab that, or I'll forward you this other thing here too. Anyway, hopefully everyone able to snag that if you want. If you're not able to get on, I'll debrief it here next week, but got to run and go cut some soybeans. So thanks everyone for hanging out here this morning. Have a good week. Be safe if you are out on the farm. We will talk to you all very soon.